is the truth? Where do we find the truth? In the Word of God. That's where we find out what truth is. This is where we find out if our theology lines up with God's truth.
Every once in a while, usually like once every message series, I throw something out on Facebook just to get some responses from people. And this week I did that. Wow. And I forgot to put the slide in there. But the slide basically asks, where do you see loyalty demonstrated in our culture? And so that was the question that I asked, and a bunch of people responded, lots of people, right? And a lot of that included like brand loyalty. People were talking about different things. Somebody even mentioned Apple products, and then they said they didn't like Apple products, which I like Apple products, so I've unfriended that person on Facebook, because isn't that what we do when we disagree with somebody on Facebook? We either chew them out or we unfriend them. I don't know. It's all good, right? Some people, variety of people talked about political parties, amongst other things in there. You'll see that some people talked about political parties. Some people just talked about friendships or family. Amazing friends. I love the second one, Joanne. She said in friendships, the ones that you can totally fail, right? And your friend still remains loyal. And then they said, it's like, in my marriage too. I have marriage. I should probably be loyal there as well. I like that. Alicia Miller, the one on the bottom of the screen, she is somebody who our family just kind of views as a part of our family. When my mom grew up, she was in and out of foster homes. And so when we grew up, we had foster kids all the time. And my mom continued to have foster kids until much later on in her life. And one of those girls was Alicia. And Alicia stayed with, we were all adults at the time, the kids, but she stayed with my mom until she had graduated and just continued to be kind of a part of the family since then. And she talks about the recovery community. And I really like what she said. She said, I've never seen such selfless people. They truly spend hours and hours a week helping people find recovery as they have found. It's like, wow, isn't that just a good hearing of what loyalty is? And of course, other people said, favorite sports teams, sports fans, right? And then I had to add what Adam put on the bottom. It says KC Chiefs and Packers fans loyal even when they suck. And the reason why I wanted to add is because as a Vikings fan, anytime Packer and suck are in the same sentence, I like to say it out loud for everyone else to hear, right? But we love our sports teams. We remain loyal to them. David Wright, he said something that I found really, really interesting. He said, basically, what's the definition of loyalty? What's the definition of culture? And then in the second paragraph up there, he says, I see loyalty of the American Indians and other ethnic groups through the carrying on of certain traditions. And I think that is so cool. What a great reminder. I wasn't thinking of that when I started planning to talk about loyalty. But there are people who are a part of this country, or people who have come into this country that have traditions. And some of us have family traditions, right? And we do our best to try and remain loyal to having them happen. Why? Because they are so, so important to us, right? And then Brenda Kay, a girl I went to college with, she said loyalty can be seen in the women or men that sticks with their partner even though they are abusive. And again, this wasn't something that I thought about. But there is a loyalty there, isn't it? Says abusive, manipulative, or a narcissist. There is loyalty even when they struggle to see their own value, perhaps loyalty to a fault. And I had to add this because it's part of what we're talking about today is I think sometimes we get caught up in loyalty to other things to a fault. Mary from this church, I loved her definition, and so I'm ending with it here to say being faithful by keeping a pledge or an oath. And I love that. It's just a great definition of what loyalty really means. And God values our loyalty. God values the loyalty of his followers. And here's the thing. Here's the thing I realize about myself, and I'm guessing if you're honest, you realize about yourself. Sometimes we run a little hot and cold when it comes to our loyalty with God. Right? And even to the point sometimes where we will say to God, like Janet Jackson taught us all in the late 80s, early 90s, God, what have you done for me lately? Right? We will do that to God. And if we don't see God working or moving in a certain way, or a way that we are hoping, or a way that impacts us in the way that we want life to go, we start to distance ourselves, knowingly or unknowingly, from God. And we just start doing our own thing. And yet God calls us to be loyal to him over everything. How do you do that? And what happens when you realize that you are no longer loyal, or as loyal as God calls us to? So the passage of scripture that we're heading in today, we're continuing the story where we're walking through the life of Elijah. And we're in week 4, so I'm not going to talk about everything that has happened in these last 3 weeks. But I do want to focus in on week 1, because somebody that we saw in week 1 comes back here in week 4. And that guy's name is Ahab. Now, Ahab has become the king of Israel. Okay, and back then, what Scripture said is that Ahab was more evil than any other king that had come before him, right? So he is the worst in God's eyes of all the kings, right? And back in week 1, Elijah comes on the scene and he just calls Ahab out for doing this, and for being evil and turning people away from God, because Ahab's bringing in the Baal worship and Asherah worship, and so all these things are happening. Ahab calls him out, or Elijah calls Ahab out, and says, there's going to be no rain until I say so. Because this is what God is saying to help you to understand that you are going against what God has said. All right? And so Elijah ends up going, away from Ahab, and the drought takes place. Elijah ends up in places where he's learning how to trust God, right? And he ends up in a situation where he prays for other people, and the impact that has on the lives of those people and drawing them to them is what's gone on. And now we get to the point in the story where God speaks to Elijah, and he says, Elijah, I want you to go back and see Ahab. Ahab, the guy that's trying to find you to kill you, by the way, right? So I want you to go back and meet Ahab. Okay, so he gets this call and he starts heading back from the northern area where he is to Israel. When Ahab starts saying, I need to find this Elijah guy because we need rain. We need to get this over with. And so he starts a search party that goes out. A guy named Obadiah, sounds like a Bible name, doesn't it, right? A guy named Obadiah and Elijah, they end up meeting. They end up coming back to Ahab. There's a story in there as well. Read it. But now Elijah is coming to meet Ahab. And what does Ahab yell out to him as he sees him? It's like, I'm glad you're finally here. The one who is ruining Israel is basically what he says. And Elijah says to Ahab, I'm not the one who's been ruining Israel. It's you. Because what you are doing is you are turning the people away from obeying God. And you're inviting them to worship and follow other gods. Now, Elijah says, so here's what I want. I think we should have a showdown. And I want you to call all the people of Israel, right? And I also want you to bring in all the prophets, all 450 prophets of Baal, right? And all 400 prophets of Asherah. And we are going to have a showdown. And that's where our story picks up today. Lord, help us to begin to understand more and more what loyalty means. Now, there is so much in this that challenges me. And my guess is it'll challenge all of us. So may our hearts, our minds be sensitive to the things that you are saying, because your word is for us, so that we may know how to know you and live for you. And God, help us each today to honestly ask the question, God, am I being loyal to you? May the words that I share and the things that we all hear be acceptable and pleasing to you, God. For you are our rock and our blessed Redeemer. Amen. Okay, so he says, gather all the people of Israel, all the prophets of Baal and Asherah. Let's get them all together when the story picks up. And it says, so Ahab, he sent word throughout all Israel and the assembly, and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. So why Mount Carmel is kind of one of the questions in all of this, right? So this mountain, prior to this time, there was an altar on this mountain that was dedicated to God. And so the Israelites, they would gather to this place sometimes and they would worship God there because of this altar where it showed this commitment that people had made to God. And so people would go there and it would remind themselves that we are to be worshiping the one true God, and people would worship him there. They would offer sacrifices there. But since Ahab's come in, he's torn this down. And now there is a temple to Baal that is on this. And so no matter where you are on the spectrum of knowing God, following God, or Baal, what you know is that this is a sacred place. And so we're about to have a showdown of the gods of this mountain. And so that's where he is. Ahab sends word throughout Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. So here's the image of what's happening, okay? People hear a showdown is taking place. And so it would seem likely, since they didn't have phones in their pockets or TVs, that people are going to say, oh, this is going to be a show, right? And the king is calling us to come see this show. So people show up because that's what the king tells them to do. So we have to get in our heads what's going on here, because it seems like, yes, the prophets of Baal are there, 450 of them, right? But then there are likely thousands of other people that are gathering on this mountain to see what is about to take place. And so Ahab the king assembles them all, right? And then it says that Elijah, he goes before the people and he says this, and he says, how long will you waver between two opinions? Now I want to pause and just talk about the word waver here. Because what the word waver means literally is limping between two sticks. Okay? And so what you have a picture of is somebody who is having a hard time walking. So what they'll do is they'll grab sticks to use as crutches. And so now what you're doing is you are moving forward in whatever direction you are, but you have a crutch under each arm. And so now that's the image of what Elijah is starting to tell all the people that are listening. How long are you going to have one thing under one arm and one thing under the other arm, and you're just going to continue to limp towards wherever you think that you should go? Do you start to see the picture? It's somebody who is limping through life. It is somebody who is hobbling through life. And what they are trying to do is they are trying to be propped up by two things. In the image of what Elijah is saying, what he says here in a second is you are trying to be propped up by the one true God, Jehovah Yahweh, right? And also the prophets of Baal. What the king is telling you is who we should worship. And you are putting one of those under each arm, and you are trying to move forward, and you are just going to continue to limp through life, hobble through life, because you're not really committing to God. And so that's the idea of what he's saying is, so how long are you going to limp through life with two opinions? And then he explains the two opinions, right? If the Lord is God, follow him, right? But if Baal is God, follow him. Then what does it say? A very clear challenge to the people. And what do they say? Nothing. I hope that weighs heavy on your heart. These people are being challenged to trust God with their life instead of putting God under one arm and the world under the other arm and just continuing to hobble through life. But they say nothing. And here's the thing, because I think we all do this. Many of us do this at least, right? That when we are confronted about our sin, when we're confronted that we are not doing the things that God is wanting us to do, how do we often respond? I think most of us, and I'm talking about myself, my initial response is stone-faced silent. You're telling me that I'm doing something wrong? And in my head, I'm fighting. Who gives you the right to tell me that I'm doing something wrong? Which is one of the crutches. And then also in my head, I begin to think, oh wait, if this is God, what God is calling me to do, then maybe God has the right to tell me, whether it's through somebody else or not, that I'm doing something wrong. We end up stone-faced and struggling with our loyalty. As I was thinking through this, it actually brought me back to one of the question, the question that I asked, and how some people responded when it came to loyalty in culture about their pets. right? And pets we treat them like family. The very first thought was the dog. They're loving, and the dog, every time I come home, even no matter how bad the day is, the dog's super excited. And I just want to ask you a question. If you were thinking of a dog typically, right, and how they are loyal, what would you say the loyalty of a dog is? And yell it out, and I'm going to repeat it so the people who are also joining us at home could hear. So when you think of loyalty of a dog, what do you think of? That they're there for you? Is that what I heard? Yeah, they are. They seem to be doing this, right? They see you, they get so excited.
What if your cat acts like this?
I'm talking about dogs right now. So what about dogs? What's the loyalty of a dog? They're devoted, right? It seems unconditional. It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter how many times I get frustrated with the dog. It seems like the dog will just keep coming back and saying, I'll give you another shot because I love you. I mean, that's what it seems like a dog is like, right? Just incredibly loyal to us. Now, typically, that's what we think of a dog. When you think of a cat, what do you typically think of? Right now, I know this is not most cats. But when we think of cats, what do we typically think of? Right? I will love you if you put food in this bowl right now. Right? Yeah. You call for the cat to come. Will the cat come? It depends. It depends. If I'm in the mood, I will. Right? That's when we think of cats typically. That's what we do. So what's the big difference between the two? A dog is incredibly loyal to its master. But when it comes to a cat, they want the master to be incredibly loyal to the cat. And so the question here that Elijah is asking people is, are you going to take the time to choose who is God in your life? Because you're propping yourself up. You still know about God. It's like you don't want to let go of God because you think there's something there, and I want my hell insurance just in case. But there's also this world, and the world it just seems so wonderful and so great, and it is, right? But we prop ourselves up with focusing on worldly things in our lives, in the lives of our family, in the lives of our children, to the point where now we have these two things, and it's causing us just to hobble through life. Are you willing to choose who is God? All right, so the story goes on, right? And Elijah says to them, they said nothing, right? They just stone-faced. They've been called out on their sin, and they're just looking at him silent. And he just says, I'm the only one. I'm the only one of the Lord's prophets left. Which actually we find out later that's not the case, right? But this is what he's feeling. I mean, you have hundreds or thousands of people around, and nobody is standing up to say, you know what? Elijah's right. God is the one true God. So he's feeling like he's alone. And the only one left. But Baal has 450 prophets who are standing up for him here. And so he starts to create this plan. This is how the showdown is going to go. He says, get 2 bowls for us, right? Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves. Let them cut it into pieces, because the idea was they would cut it as a sacrifice to their God, right? Cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set it to fire, right? And I'll prepare the other bowl, and I'll put it on the wood, and I will set that, but I won't set that to fire as well. And then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. He's not even saying my God, right? Which is one of the things we get caught up in. Because we think, we hear in our world, that crutch, that my God is my God and your God is your God. But as people who believe what the Bible says, no, there is one God. That's it. And that's what Elijah's trying to remind all the people. You call on your God, but I'm going to call on the one true God. And the God who answers by fire, he is God. And then all the people say, well, what you say is good. That makes sense to us. It's interesting. They wouldn't say a single word when they were called out to stand up for God. But what they are saying is okay. And hear this, because I think this is okay even for us. That's a tough statement to stand up front and say. It's okay for us to say, I'm not fully convinced that God that you're talking about is the one true God. What I'm saying is, go ahead, ask him to show you. And that's what the people are saying. We're so caught up in the world and doing what we want to do that we've forgotten really about the one true God. So would you remind us who's real? And think about it. The expectation probably is, I hope something happens. If nothing happens, I'll just continue to wander through life the way that I have. So the people are saying, what you say is good. And so Elijah says to the prophets of Baal, they said, choose one of the bulls, prepare it. Since there are so many of you, you can go first. You're the home team, is basically what he's saying. So you guys go first. Your altar is already set up because people have been worshiping Baal here. And then you call on the name of your God, but do not light the fire. And this is the second time that he said that, which usually sparks my interest. And it's funny I say that, because what the prophets of Baal would do is they would take their rods, and while they're doing their times of worship, they would put like flint rocks and stuff at the end of their rod, and then they would strike it down on where they were going to do the sacrifice, hoping that it would create a spark that would cause fire to happen. And it was a really impressive thing that when they were worshiping, the next thing you know, fire was taking place on their sacrifice. And so Elijah reminds them, no cheating, right? No, don't hide a spark inside your rod for this, right? And so do not light the fire. And so they took the bull given to them and they prepared it. And then they called on the name of Baal from morning till noon. And I want to stop you here, just because what we're about to find out is in the absolute heat of the day, when the sun is at its hottest, what we're about to see is they are seeking and calling out to their God to send fire. When it would make most sense for fire to show up is when they got the chance to ask their God for it. And so they are calling out to their God morning till noon, right? Baal, answer us, they shouted. But there was no response. No one answered. And they danced around the altar that they made. And they just continued in this worship thing, around this thing that they, in order to gather the attention of this God that was created by humans. And today, when we think of gods and false gods, oftentimes what we think of is an idol. But it is something far more than something made out of wood or stone or metal. Timothy Keller, in his book, Counterfeit Gods, he actually gives a great definition of an idol. And he says, what is an idol? It is anything more important to you than God. You could almost have done a full stop right there. You know what an idol is? Anything more important to you than God. Anything that absorbs your heart and imagination more than God. Right? Anything you seek to give you what only God can give. And so these people are dancing around this temple, trying to allow everyone around them to see that the way we want to worship God and the God that we want to worship is the way that we want it to go. And so Baal, send down that fire. And Timothy Keller is saying idols are something that we all deal with. Now, the New Testament talks about this as well. Where in 1 John chapter 2, what it says is everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Now, let me stop to say, what is lust? Lust is where you have this urge and your desire through thinking where you want to act on it. That's what lust is. Where you feel like you have to have this thing. You have to do this thing. And so what John is reminding the followers of Christ is that's everything in this world is things that your body is craving, things that you're looking at and thinking that I want, pride of life, things that you're thinking might better who you are, might better your family, might better your position in society, that somehow will give us all the edge up in the world around us. What John is saying is all that stuff doesn't come from the Father, but it comes from the world. And the world and its desires pass away. But whoever does the will of the Father lives forever. And so God's word just continues to remind us that it's not about the world. And I struggle with this. I just want to be honest. So I've been doing this pastor thing for a long time. And you want to know one of the things that really, really frustrates me about this? I lose my weekends. Every Sunday I'm working. Now, some of you are laughing and some of you have said to me, yeah, but you only work Sundays, right? I mean, you work for a half hour every week, right? And I try to extend it longer to make you realize that I'm doing more than that. But I do get frustrated. And so sometimes in my head, it's like, Lord, can't I just do something else so that I can enjoy my weekends? That my family, who often has Saturday and Sunday off, right? I could do something with, we could get away, we could go camping, we could do whatever, right? And yet, that's a lust of the flesh. And I'm not trying to guilt you all as much as I'm just trying to make you understand I struggle with this. I want to live for God, and sometimes I see what the world offers, and I want that instead. But God says, I want you. I want all of you. And I will help you, and I will lead you, and I will guide you in and through this world so that you can bring me honor and glory. But you've got to let go. And so the prophets are wandering around, right? And they're trying to get a response from Baal. And then, so they're doing this, and they're worshiping, and they're praising Baal, and all this kind of stuff. And Elijah steps in. We're talking about the section in between before we get to verse 36. Elijah steps in, and he says, hey, how come your God is not listening to you? Is he busy? Right? Is he just choosing to not listen to you? Wait. Did your God go on vacation? I mean, these are the things that he's saying to these people. Why isn't your God listening to you? Why don't you try harder to get your God's attention? And so they do. And they start worshiping feverishly. They pull out their knives and they start cutting themselves, hoping that the blood that they are willing to shed as themselves as a sacrifice to Baal might draw Baal's attention. And all throughout the afternoon, the heat of the day, they're trying to get the attention of Baal, trying to help the world understand that what the world has to offer is what is okay in our lives. And the fire never comes. Not even in the heat of the day. The fire never comes. And so then it's Elijah's turn. And Scripture says that Elijah goes and he finds 12 stones. And he puts them together just to remind people that they were the 12 tribes of Israel that were called together to be the followers of God. And he starts to make the altar once again on Mount Carmel, the sacred place of worship. And then he tries to help people to understand that he has nothing up his sleeve, right? He's trying to help everyone to understand that what he is doing is showing that this is God and not him by any stretch. And so he digs a trench around where he has the altar made, right? And then he tells people, he says, go get 4 big pails of water and pour it on the sacrifice. Go do it again. Go do it a 3rd time, is what he says. And so now there's so much water soaking everything that the trenches that he's dug around have completely filled up. So you get an image of what's going on here. And then he goes before God and he starts to pray. And we pick this up in verse 36. It says, and at the time of the sacrifice, the prophet Elijah steps forward and prays. And he says, Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, reminding people of what their heritage, their history was, and how God had called them to be his followers, right? Let it be known today that you are God. Talk about a bold prayer. Talk about a bold decision of what to do. Let it be known that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and I have done, and this is important, and I have done all these things at your command. And now we begin to realize that God's been speaking to Elijah the whole time. Elijah just didn't offhandedly say, well, let's just let's do a showdown. Let's let something happen to prove who's God here. No, he's been listening to God, and God has been, as he's been trusting God has been showing him how he is supposed to live, and even the things that he is supposed to say when he stands up in front of people who are stone-faced against him. Like, I don't want to hear about your God right now. Maybe later. God is telling him what to say. And he says that I have done all these things at your command. God, you've told me to do it, and so I'm doing it. Answer me, Lord. Answer me, so that these people know. I trust you, God. That's what he's saying. But I want these people to know that you are the Lord. That you, Lord, are God. and I love this part, and that you are turning their hearts back again. God, you have not given up on these people who are standing stone-faced in front of you, silent, but you're inviting their hearts to turn back to you once again. Talk about a beautiful picture of a faithful, loving God. It says, and then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice. Now the word fell here, the image of what it's talking about is something that drops instantly. And in the definition, it's even the picture. What they say is that somebody who is standing there just drops dead, right? What happens to that person if you drop dead and you're standing? You just fall right down. And so the idea of how quickly that happens is how the fire, now it's evening, right? The sun is going down, but the fire starts coming down from heaven in a way that you couldn't even imagine. And it's there almost in an instant where they got to see it come down. Because that's the power of God and what he can do. And it says it burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stone, the soil, licked up all the water in the trench. God was showing himself not just with this little test of this, which would have been crazy anyways, but everything to even stop us from thinking that he truly is God. He's even eating that up in front of everyone to say, this is me. I am here. And I'm inviting your heart to come back to me again. So that's what's going on here. And what do the people do? And I love this. And I am hoping that this is us today. When all the people saw this, they fell. The same idea of just dropping instantly before God happens. As God dropped instantly the evidence, the proof that he is the one true God. Then the people who saw this, the people who realized this, for us, the people who hear this, we drop instantly. They fell prostrate and cried, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. Friends, the Lord is the one true God. Plain and simple. That's what the story is trying to help us to understand. I was thinking back to, once again, to the questions that I asked on Facebook. And Charlie Cope, this guy that I know is a really godly man, he writes all this stuff about the struggle of what loyalty looks like. But then on the bottom he says, I am loyal to God when I sow sacrificial love and expect nothing in return, even if it breaks my heart. Friends, are we willing to be loyal to God, even if it breaks our heart? Are we willing to be a blessing as we stand up for God in this world and not be stone-faced and silent, even if what people do may break our hearts? Would we choose to be loyal today? We started off today with this covenant that happened with John and Haley, with their son Colt, and we all recited our words. And I would love for us today to end with a covenant as well. Now this isn't something that we usually do each and every week, but I want us just to have the opportunity to not just be stone-faced and silent, and say that I am going to serve the Lord. There's a couple questions I want you to be thinking about as we move into this. And the first question is in what areas do you find yourself wavering? Right, where you're just hobbling through life because you know about God, but you're also accepting this in the world as important. Are you finding yourself wavering between two opinions instead of fully committing to God? Where is that in your life? What does that look like? What would it take for you today to declare and demonstrate complete, loyal obedience to God? It might be different for all of us. But what we're all doing is trying to say, Lord, as best I can and as best I know how, I say no to this, whatever it is. And I say yes to being loyal to you. I'm going to share this covenant here in just a second. And I invite you to say the words where it says all. They'll be in red. You'll be able to see it. But this is a time where we are choosing to commit our loyalty to God. Will we be perfect in it? No, right? God is not expecting our perfection. What God is expecting from us is that we would choose to be loyal to Him. And as we wander through life trying to understand more and more by listening to God's word and by investing in the lives of other people as they invest in us, so that we can discover what God is saying, so that we can live that out and we use our gifts to bless the world, that as we do these things, that we show the loyalty that we commit with our words. And so you don't have to say this if you don't want to. If you feel weird about what somebody else around you might be doing and you want to say it, go ahead. What I'm concerned about, right, is that my heart right now and my mind is being given to God. So join me in the things where it says red. How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow Him. But if Baal, follow him. Friends, how will you respond when tempted? We will serve the Lord. What will you do when threatened? We will serve the Lord. When you are afraid, we will serve the Lord. When you feel alone, we will serve the Lord. When unbelievers challenge your faith, we will serve the Lord. When you don't know what else to do, we will serve the Lord. Like Joshua said, if it doesn't please you to worship the Lord, then choose for yourselves today which you will worship. Worship the gods of our ancestors, worship beyond the Euphrates rivers, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. As for me and my family, we will serve the Lord. Let's pray. God, thank you for this challenge. For some of us, I'm guessing this was a gut punch. And yet I thank you for it, because I think I need to hear this and I need to be reminded of this. And my guess is we all do. And so, Lord, as we have been this group of people that is surrendering ourselves to you and making this commitment that we are going to be loyal to you, help us. May your Spirit be working in through us, that we can learn and discover more and more each and every day, and especially every week as we gather together, on what it means to serve you with loyalty. And as we learn it, God, help us to live it. And as we stumble, help us to confess. And God, we know your word says that you will pick us up, you will brush us off, and help us to move forward again. Thank you for that promise, God. And today I say, and we say, that we will serve the Lord. Amen.
Thank you for watching this week's message. We hope you found it both encouraging and helpful. If you did, please click the like button and share with your friends. If you want to hear when new messages are posted, please subscribe to the Benton Church. We also invite you to join us on site for worship. We're located in Benton, Kansas, just east of Wichita. Our Sunday services start at 10:30 and our doors are open to everyone. For more information, please check out our website at thebentonchurch.org.
What do you know about God?
He loves us.
He died for our sin.
He helps us.
He's powerful.
And he loves you.